Shelley, darling, will you please light these candles for me?
Oh, Mary, darling. Astonishing creature.
Aye, Lord Byron.
Frightened of thunder, fearful of the dark, and yet you have written a tale that sent my blood into icy creeps. Look at her, Shelley. Can you believe that bland and lovely brow conceived of Frankenstein?
The whole idea of monsters and evil forces, I think, were much more a part of everyday life and believed because they had no other explanation.
The publishers did not see that my purpose was to write a moral lesson of the punishment that befell a mortal man who dared to emulate God.
Hurry.
Frankenstein's monster, when Mary Shelley wrote it, you know, the imagination of that period, that's all they could do is write stories and be as detailed as they could about these creations.
I don't even consider these monster movies. I always say that there are no monsters in these movies, just people with very bad problems.
Here's the final touch.
It's not a horror story, it's a science fiction story. And it had to do with a lot of the potentials that were seen to be the possible dangers of scientific advancement.
Think of it, the brain of a dead man, waiting to live again in a body I made with my own hands. With my own hands.
They were just beginning to get into the idea of using surgical technique to restore significant quality of life issues for people. I mean, it hadn't been possible before, and it was just beginning to be. And there was a lot of speculation as to how much you could improve a person surgically. And I think that a lot of that was what Mary Shelley was playing with.
She's alive! Alive!
It's one of those themes that is brought out by all those monster movies, and particularly Frankenstein, who's a classic victim. He was part of this ambitious dream of a scientist to kind of better God in a way and create life himself, and he's brought to life and then he's left on his own. He's very much a victim.
Everybody thinks he's just a monster and he's really scary, but I know that he's misunderstood. He's Lenny in Of Mice and Men, and he's the Elephant Man, and he's a man-child, and he's just misunderstood. And that gives him a whole complexity, and I think you watch Boris Karloff and you get that.
Will you play with me?
Any kid who's ever felt like the outcast at school or didn't fit into the cliques has always been that kind of character that's just trying to make sense of, I don't want to hurt anybody, I just want to fit in and I just want to understand what my place is.
No!
He doesn't mean to kill this little girl. You feel sorry not only for the little girl, you feel sorry for him because you know it's kind of all over. Frankenstein has to be scary, and he has to be a monstrous. But I felt like in the original movie, you have to feel sympathy for him. And that's a fine line because you don't want to get sappy. And Frankenstein, he's angry. And he's willing to kill. And people are trying to kill him. And so he's got all this baggage.
The monster is, like any of us, really looking for love and acceptance. And it's sort of a tragic tale of what can happen when a human being or a monster doesn't get that. You end up pulling for him in a way.
Friend, good. Friend, good.
I saw The Bride of Frankenstein because that's so great. That's also a terrific movie, and some people say it's better than the original. And because they were so well done, the people who made them loved them.
All I watched when I was a kid were science fiction and especially horror movies. And I grew up with, Famous Monsters magazine. I had every one.
If you read Famous Monsters in the 60s, every issue had a picture of Frankenstein in it. So again, it was part of your psyche. So I don't know if I chose it as much as it chose me.
We're far enough along the series of films now for them to have their own iconic history. When I watched the original, everybody thinks they know it's alive, it's alive, it's alive. And I watched it thinking, it's going to be melodramatic and silly. And it is melodramatic, but it's rather magnificent, actually. It's the central piece of the original movie.
Oh, it's alive!
It's alive! It's alive!
There is a kind of relish in seeing a story retold, over the years, and a new generation's perspective on it.
Something down here.
And a new generation's take on what that would be like.
I'd say he's a size 17. About 360 pounds, 8.5 to 9 feet tall. There's a bad gimp in his right leg. 3 copper teeth.
How do you know he has copper teeth?
He's standing right behind you.
Move!
Oh my God! The Frankenstein monster!
Monster? Who is the monster here? I have done nothing wrong, and yet you and your kind all wish me dead!
When I knew I was going to do it, obviously your mind is going, oh, this is an incredible opportunity. But while doing it, the script and the movie and the storyline are so completely original.
Now listen, Carl, whatever you do,
that you really feel like you're creating Frankenstein's monster for the first time.
I'm staring at him. Is that a man? Actually, it's 7 men. Parts of them, anyway.
By exposing me, you have condemned me! Me and all of humanity!
You have a character that has a personal history with everybody, and yet you have maybe an idea of a different approach to it. Not so much what everyone remembers in the past productions of it.
May others be as passionate in their hunting of you.
There's a fan base there that's very easy to upset if you start changing the rules or redesigning certain things that are kind of, built in. And Stephen is such a huge fan of those original characters that he was always conscious of retaining the original mythology, yet still wanting to show you something different and exciting.
Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil!
Frankenstein was such an icon. I said he had to have a flat head, he had to have bolts on his neck, and he had to have the Doc Martens on his feet. And I said, other than that, we were really going to play with him.
We did facial molds, and they had the bust of me. It sort of just developed.
Stephen really wanted it to look like Schuler, because Schuler has such a great face. He didn't want a monster or something scary. He wanted a real humanity to the character. And when we started designing it, if I kept Schuler's face and built on top of it, it would have been just so big in areas. So what I did was took Schuler and built him out and thickened his face up, but trying still to sculpt it so it looks just like Schuler, but bigger.
The most exciting part is like saying, okay, we have to do a Frankenstein now. It's not just about scars and pieces of skin together and things. Let's do something else. You need to make sure the vision is appropriate, because it's already hard to work with guys in suits on set, but if they don't see what they're doing and if they can't walk or they can do this and that, you don't want to create too many limitations. You will have limitations, but you try to minimize them.
I said, I want something like the Nautilus, to where it's like old iron. It looks like 1800. It was, but a really beautiful design to it, and rivets. And then Stephen said, yeah, we'll put a little lightning storm going on when we see the top of his head. Like, oh, that's cool.
It's like one of those little toys. I have leg extensions that go on at the end, hands that go on separately, and the makeup.
It takes 2 of us to apply his face makeup, and then it takes about 3 or 4 people to get him into the suit, and then there's the mechanics. So when he walks on set, there's about 7 or 8 people following him down.
I say I feel like Britney Spears, and I have 8 or 9 handlers, so.
And cut.
Deep down, there is some sexy something about him, and I'm so glad that I could bring that out.
Frankenstein talks. That's the big difference. And you got Schuler, who did a great job.
You did this to me, Mr. Summers, and you will pay somehow.
I am Dracula. I bid you welcome.
I had read Bram Stoker's Dracula, and I read the book about 20 years ago.
It's just a scratch.
Probably seen him only in about a half a dozen movies. I think he's been in 150.
Here.
The folkloric vampire, in the tradition that Stoker would have been familiar with, was a walking corpse. I mean, it was something that came back from the dead, was still dressed in its death clothes. Romantic poets borrowed the vampire from folklore and then turned it into an aristocratic nobleman who was a seducer of women. That goes way back to Lord Byron. The Dracula figure that Stoker created has been romanticized mainly by 20th century popular culture.
Why does that thought of something dark that comes in the night and moves to your neck, why is that appealing to some people? It's terrifying, but it's also, you know, you're drawn to it.
As I have told you, my dear, ours will be a different life, without material needs, a life that will last through eternity.
The minute you evoke death, you evoke terror, which is part of the fascination of the vampire, because the vampire walks around in this usually very beautiful human form, indistinguishable, except sometimes by its habits from other human beings, but it's dead, and it wants you to go with it.
You admire my ring?
When I look at it, I see glimpses of a strange world. A world of people who are dead, and yet alive.
It is the place from which I've just returned.
It frightens me.
Well, it will drive away your fears.
It has something to do with the sort of quiet torment of a person who has made a compact with the devil and will live forever, but is not allowed to feel anything.
To die, to be really dead, that must be glorious.
Well, Count Dracula.
There are far worse things waiting man than death.
You know, he doesn't want to be the living dead. He'd rather be living or dead, not this.
Maybe it's the immortality, and maybe it's the sexy getup. I don't know what it is, or that he can fly or turn into various creatures, or that he gets all the girls. Done well, people cannot get enough of Dracula. I like him because he's cool.
Let us begin!
There, my darlings. Do not worry. I shall find another bride.
What? Do we mean so little to you? Have you no heart?
No! I have no heart!
I think the Dracula myth is a sexy story. What exactly is sexy about it is a kind of perpetual mystery and an enigma.
I think Dracula catches the attention because he is evil, but he's very sexy. But the fact that it sucks blood, it feels like it's a search for love. It's not. Of course it's not.
As you're doing this thing with her, you could lean in a little bit closer to her. I just think you could get a little bit, and then do this. Then your head kind of comes back as your fangs come out. You know, so, yeah, there you go. She's kind of like a pompous rock star, but in a really good way. How Richard pulled that off, I don't know. It just feels so period.
Now that it is, as you yourself have said, a triumph of science over God.
Touch fun of it. That was great. I'd say this is the only time in my career, was with Richard, where what I saw when I was directing it wasn't necessarily what would end up on film. I've never had that. I would be like looking at dailies and going, I don't remember him doing that before. I don't know what it is about him, but he does something sexy and twisted and really cool.
Richard was one of those surprising people that just jumped right in and said, I can do it, and did it.
Camera will actually be looking at you like
I didn't really practice much with him. I said, dude, let's go over and try something. He jumped in and he showed me he was comfortable, like right off the bat, and just started adding to it.
Why can't they just leave us alone? We never kill more than our fill, or less than our share.
I love all that. I love the hanging upside down and walking across the ceiling and all of that. I would get a real buzz out of it. I kind of treat it as if I've paid to do it. And I would probably pay it because I like that sort of stuff. Now, if they had to bury me in a coffin, and or in a really tight space or something, that might be a different story.
Requiescat in pace.
Hello, Gabriel. If anyone's
really got pressure in this movie, it's him. Because, you know, Gary Oldman did a great job. There's so many great Draculas, and it's not a lot of people can list. I mean, Van Helsing has been played before, but not a lot of people remember them like they do Dracula.
Before you go, allow me to reintroduce myself. I am Count Władysław Dragun. Born 1432. Murdered 1462.
It's such a treat for me to work with Richard Roxburgh because I first saw Richard on stage when I was 21 years old, and it was right around that time when I was contemplating becoming an actor, and I remember his performance so vividly. And since then, I've seen him do what I think is the best Hamlet I've ever seen, and some stuff on television and film, which is remarkable. And people used to ask me when I first came out, who do you look up to? And I used to say Richard Roxburgh and Geoffrey Rush and these great Australian actors. And I told Steve this. He says, I love it. He says, because you guys are enemies, and I want there to be that feeling of awe as well as competition between the two of you.
You're too late, my friend.
Not that it's very competitive, it doesn't feel very competitive, but it's certainly acting opposite Richard, who's a wonderful actor. I feel as though you've got to bring out your best, you know.
You are too late, my friend. My children live.
Then the only way to kill them is to kill you.
Correct.
Let's go!
I love the myths and the legends. I had no interest in exploding them, but I had a lot of interest in expanding them. I love these characters, and I love some of their iconography, the way they look. But Dracula's on Sesame Street, so clearly you can't have the widow's peak and the cape. There's a couple scenes where he wears a cape, and it's really to great effect, but never because we're like winking or nodding or laughing at the character.
I did a lot draw about Dracula. The first idea was the contemporary dress, but Steve told me no, it's a danger come maybe too much pop star, and we decided the style the 18th century, but with the touch much modern.
Action, Richard.
The first cape that I did for the test is a black and inside is a red. But during the test, I tell me no, is it too much?
There's that bat again.
Dracula turns into a bat, but I'm not afraid of bats. I thought, but what if my bat had a 15-foot wingspan? That'd be different.
Steve was very keen on having this dual thing between something more human and extremely beastie like.
We hint at during the earlier parts of the film, but you don't really fully understand what's going to happen to Dracula. Particularly with the Hell Beast, he really wanted him to go all the way to a creature, and so not really retain a shred of humanity after he was done.
I had done a design for that, taking Dracula's kind of nightmarish image of what he represents and kind of bringing that to life, which really doesn't have much to do with the actor or a human. It's more that just essence of evil that he represents. Add a lot of bat feature into the face and, you know, giant claws and this kind of pumping him full of adrenaline, you know what I mean? This super uber bat creature.
It took me maybe 2 hours to come up with the design. It was just done, and it felt right. I brought it in, they felt it was right, we all liked it. We were great, just like we just showed the director, he loved it, that was it. A lot of this is mimicking the sonar ribbing of a bat. Vampire bat has like these gutters where the blood can trail out so it can do its thing.
A lot of that is informed by character. If it's an evil creature, you want to make sure that there's some sense of menace and anger and venom that exists with the character on every level. The way that they look, their color, you know, how they move, all of those sorts of things.
It makes him so evil. I mean, it's so blasphemous and evil that, you know, yeah, it makes him a great villain.
Give me
I put a lot of effort in the writing of the script and writing of that character, and then I happened to get Richard. And it's funny, my wife saw a couple of Richard's scenes cut together, and The next day I heard her on the phone to one of her friends, and she said, "You're just not going to believe this guy's playing Dracula." Starting off, I kind of had the least interest in Dracula because I thought, oh God, it's been done so many times and done brilliantly several times. And how do you top that? And especially when it's not called Dracula. And so Richard had his work cut out for him. Richard has no fear. And he took it, and the proof is in the pudding. He did a great job as Dracula.
And beg the devil that this time they stay alive.
Vi dum cop fuera of mouth.
Deinde, cum extractum vespertilionis sanguini nixtum est, sanguis puniceo colore amisso lacteus fit.
Gentlemen, we are dealing with the undead.
Mas, Arauto.
Yes, Nosferatu. The undead. The vampire.
Abraham Van Helsing is one of the characters in Stoker's novel Dracula, and the first significant thing about that is that that's Bram Stoker's first name, because Bram is a short form of Abraham.
You're looking exceptionally...
Pardon me, Dr. Seward. But I think Miss Mina should go to her room at once.
Professor Van Helsing, I don't believe it's as important as you seem to think it is.
Excuse me, Count Dracula, Professor Van Helsing.
I think Stoker had a soft spot in his heart for Van Helsing. The very fact that here's an author, creates a character, gives that character his own first name, I think that's significant. He obviously thinks of that character as the central character or the most heroic character in the novel.
Your will is strong, Van Helsing.
Indeed.
Van Helsing is one of those classic movie archetypes. He's not always a nice guy. Ultimately, he's pretty much a good guy. But he doesn't always go about it by the book.
What was in there?
A gentleman with a stake driven right through his heart.
Oh.
Do you know anything about this?
Yes, I did it.
Who is he in there?
His name was Count Dracula.
How long has he been dead?
About 500 years.
He was the original vampire hunter. And so I thought, oh, that's a good way to start. He'll be my hero. The eye movement was really great. Ready, and action!
You'll be hard to digest.
I'd hate to be such a nuisance.
My attitude was sort of like, okay, I love the idea of this character. How do I make him my own?
Here I come, ready or not!
I thought, well, what if I caught him at the beginning of his career, if you will? Made him younger, hipper, different. A hero who takes on the classic big monsters.
Now that I have your attention.
If you saw him a block away in silhouette, you'd know it's Van Helsing. He has a black hat and a black cape and a black coat, and he has a duster, like one of those old Western dusters, but it's black.
Van Helsing! You mother!
Van Helsing, in a sense, is an outsider. And although he might not be a monster in the sense that Frankenstein is, he's still viewed as something not normal. You know, something out of the ordinary.
No!
You heard what he said!
My life, my job is to vanquish evil. I can sense evil.
I think it's a little bit of an ode to James Bond, you know.
Rings of garlic, holy water.
Every movie I have to come up with new and interesting props and weapons and stuff like that. It's part of the whole deal. But with this, I just thought, well, there's only certain ways you can kill a werewolf and certain ways you can kill a vampire, and thought, but now I have to take it to the next level.
My latest invention.
Ah, now this I like.
Yes, it's gas-propelled and capable of catapulting bolts in rapid succession at tremendous velocity. Just pull the trigger and hold on.
Every time I finish a script, I give it to my producing partner, Bob, and he reads it and he says, this is who we need as a lead, and it's usually right. He read it and he said, this is Hugh Jackman.
Cardinal has ordered you to keep me alive.
For as long as possible.
We came to one name, and really one name only, and that was Hugh Jackman.
Why is it so important to kill this Dracula anyway?
Because he's the son of the devil.
Oh, I mean besides that.
Because if we kill him, anything bitten by him or created by him will also die.
He embodies everything that the character is about. He's dashing, he's strong, he is handsome, he's capable of kicking ass.
Back off, pal.
Girls want to be with him, guys want to be like him. He really is the only person that we ever thought about.
Are you all right?
Now that we've made the movie, it's hard to differentiate between the way I wrote Van Helsing as a writer and the way I see it now with Hugh Jackman.
Werewolf!
You know, it's kind of all about Hugh now, in a really good way. Whatever you put your hand, you take it away, just kind of spin towards. This camera's eventually going to be here. I love the thought.
There's something very solid about Hugh. You immediately trust him and like him.
So if you want to save your family, you need to stay alive until Dracula is killed.
And who will kill them if not me? Who will show courage if not me?
If you go out there alone, you'll be outmanned and outpositioned, and you can't see in the dark.
He's somebody that you totally believe would be enduringly around saving the day.
In the morning, we will hunt him. Together.
He's strong and he's fit and he has good humor and he doesn't give off a sense of arrogance or vanity, and yet he's extremely cute as well. So he's just got everything that you really want a traditional, kind of in the best sort of old-fashioned sense, leading man to have.
I'll find you! I'll get you back and set you free! I swear to God!
Hugh has a reputation as being one of the nicest people in show business. I came onto this movie in an attempt to find something about Hugh's character to debunk that theory. He is genuinely the most generous, happy, uplifting person to be around. He really is a genuinely lovely guy.
Got another one of these?
There's got to be something bad about him. I intend to find it and to make it known throughout the world of show business. Hopefully. You always this popular?
Pretty much.
Here we go.
Very good, everybody. That was nice, man. I flew up to Vancouver and visited him on X-Men and talked to him and asked him what he's been doing, how he feels about the wire work, basic things. Try to find out where he excels and where his weak points may be. And in Hugh's particular instance, there isn't any.
Ray kind of caught on to the fact that I'm a bit of a thrill seeker. I love all that stuff. And as a viewer of these movies, I just love watching the actor do it. Not because I'm going, wow, look at that actor, because it keeps me going in the story. And he said, mate, I totally agree. He says, whatever you can do something, I'm going to get you to do it.
3, 2, 1, go!
The great thing about doing X-Men first is that physically I was in good shape. I didn't have to do 8 years of training to get into it, so I was ready. Although I have to say Van Helsing was probably 50% tougher than X-Men was, physically. I kept thinking, you know what, if I fell off, I'm dead. Yep, I'm dead. Anyway, so I'm going along. I did 3 takes, and Troy, the second unit stunt guy, came up to me and he goes, man, I got to tell you, in my entire career, I don't think I've ever seen an actor do a stunt like this. And I said, what do you mean? Why not?
Is that your sword or mine, darling?
This is the first time I've done a movie where ostensibly I've got the lead role, or name above title, as agents would call it. And that was something that I'd been offered before, but my agent had been wary of me taking and wanted to wait for the right project. So when this one came along, both of us sort of had a conference call and were just like, this is the one, this is it, let's go. I felt like it was a good part for me. It was different enough from what I'd done before, and yet I could tell it was sort of in my strengths.
Action!
It's that kind of swashbuckling film and that kind of character where This is not a spoof, this is not all tongue-in-cheek, it's very real. But there's a lightness of touch to it, there's a little wink in the eye, there's a kind of panache to it that those old 40s movies used to have. I think that's why it's got such a unique look and yet somehow feels slightly familiar.
And cut. Ladies and gentlemen, as far as Van Helsing's concerned, Kate Beckinsale and Hugh Jackman are finished on this movie.
Can I get a proper hug?
Mr. Talbot seems to have heard about the unfortunate constable last night. It's disturbing him. But he doesn't understand. There's a curse upon me. See that scar? That's where I was bitten by a wolf. Only it wasn't a real wolf, it was a man. A werewolf. I killed him. Now I change into a wolf at night when the moon is full.
Can't tell me that's a dog.
You are quite right. It isn't a dog.
I know a man who has the power to help you.
No one can help me.
The werewolf is a really great character. I think most people think, oh, he's a guy turns into a werewolf and kills people, and I suddenly realize, oh, the werewolf is more like a drug addict or an alcoholic where, during the day he's just fine. He could be your brother, your uncle, your dad. He's really a good guy, but at night his demons come out. On the one hand, you're thinking, they gotta kill this guy. On the other hand, you're saying, oh, when they do, I'm gonna be really sad.
I killed Baylor. I killed Richardson. If I stay around here much longer, you can't tell who's gonna be next.
The werewolf tradition is the animal or lower half of human nature. The predator, the dark side, what Jung calls the shadow. And that's the animal nature that we try to control. It's the nature of the beast within.
The hook of any character is always their journey, the arc. I was told that I would get to make that transition between this young prince into this, great big, huge, 10-ton, scary werewolf. It was great fun. I thought, excellent.
Cover the rope! Cover the rope!
Like this, and then one hand, then grab your face and sort of rip your face off and rip your body and ripping it. We've seen so many times guys growing hair, turning into wolves. I said, we can't do that. The growing hair thing, no matter which way you do it, stop motion or CG, it's just been done down. And so we came up with our own way. We thought, what if the man starts ripping his skin off and ripping his face right off, and underneath him is growing this werewolf?
The way they pitched it was fascinating, the way in which this creature apparently comes from within, and I knew exactly, I thought, great, with that I can run and fly with that.
Action!
Will Kemp came in, when we were casting in London, he came in kind of off the street, and he just blew us away. He was like, his performance was great, and on top of that, when we asked him to turn into a werewolf, he was contorting all over the place.
No, wait, I only have a moment. But don't get this. No, listen, I built like a secret.
So it wasn't until later we found out that he's a ballet dancer, he's done Swan Lake, I'm like, oh, that makes sense now.
His body will do all these extraordinary things, and very much uses it in his acting, and is a sweetheart.
Whenever you try to reinvent something so well known, you always try to, at the same time, give it justice and learn as much as you can about when it was created and why.
Run! Anna!
But, I only do half this part, and the rest of it is really ILM.
We had to develop a lot of ways of tearing
the skin and tools to make that work. It's very tricky stuff because, it has to look like the skin is pressing against the fur, and then when you take off the skin, the fur pops out and so on. So it's very complicated.
One of the challenges with the Van Helsing project is things like the werewolves, where you have seen them in other movies, but so how do you come up with a different twist? And now it's one of those things where we've sold the director on this, so we have to figure out how to do it. So we take a look at some R&D of ripping up cloth material, trying to figure out how do we determine where it splits, do we simulate that, do we define it? We've got to have some flexibility because we know once we're into the shot, Stephen's going to want to split in different areas. And he's going to transform in different phases. His face may start transforming first in terms of shape, and then his hands are going to rip out. And, so we have to have that flexibility built in.
That's the werewolf. It looks amazing. The artwork's just phenomenal.
So they show you any of the wolf stuff or anything?
Nothing yet. We just arrived.
Oh, okay.
We're going to head over to our department next.
Okay. Oh, okay.
They've got tons of concepts.
They've got tons of concept.
Oh, yeah.
We actually have been building you in CG, both as a digital double and werewolf.
Wow. And a lot of this was done for your character.
We go through a lot of reiterations for one creature, so this is just...
Yeah, this is a small sample of all the research that we did.
We love to look at nature. It always has to come back and kind of be real. Even though it's very much a fantasy creature, a werewolf, it still has to be grounded. So we had a cast of a real wolf skull in, and we were checking how do the teeth bite and how do they overlap, and really getting into that anatomy.
When they ask you to design a werewolf, it's like, well, yeah, exactly, what do you do? It's like redesigning water. All the models are based on this guy. This is kind of like the Bible wolf guy. So in model meaning the digital model of the werewolf, this is the base for all of them. We built all the other wolves. That's why you see how the design varied here up on the wall? Yep. Because we used the information that was the digital grab from this. Say this guy was scanned in. We used the information, and that's why it modified this to come to this guy.
Wow.
Yeah, because we had to make sure that we could use all the information for all of them.
I got you.
Stephen Summers kept on asking us to make the legs stronger, so that drove the design too. So from the original concept, which was kind of feral looking and skinny and wild looking, I took pieces from that and then created the three per the personality of the actor and the characters that they were playing.
When we build a clay maquette, we want to build something that we can scan into the computer. It kind of saves a lot of time down the road in the computer graphics pipeline. The scan really gets a lot of the proportions and all that stuff right, not necessarily all the details.
Here we're really just trying to get a feel for how this character is going to act, how he's going to run around. He is human, but he wants to be resembling a wolf, and so we're combining the kinesthetics, if you like, of those two challenges. We had real wolves come in, which was fantastic, beautiful animals. We composited their real fur onto the top of the creature we were building for a guide splines of not only length but also properties of hair. Here you can actually see artwork, just the computer hair splines we're laying in that will be his hair eventually, and here you can see the actual CG sculpture on top of that. Here we just did a simple expression test just to make sure that the splines are tracking and behaving correctly on the face. Basically, we're changing the surface that we've created shapes on, so that was quite a challenge, meaning that as a surface is transforming, it's also tearing, and with the simulation and dynamics of it tearing and shredding, it's being changed by metaphysical effects that we can't plan or time, so we had to make a system that would work irrelevant of whether it was torn in half or torn in 10 pieces or 20 pieces.
And certainly with the wolves, you've covered them with fur. Some areas we need very short fur and it has to lay flat. You have a whole team of people that do nothing but simulate the hair and the fur. And then we have to get the look right, so we have to put on special lights and deal with that and make all that interact, and then we have to add wind and other types of things. So adds a whole nother layer of complexity to the process.
It's a fine line between getting too real and making it this really new, cool, kind of fresh thing too. There's some balancing there.
And then the other thing we put in, like this, bullet here and all those types of things.
Good, move on.
All right, we'll go ahead and just refine it and put it out to film.
Yep.
Great.
Time to go.
Thank you. Typically, we would transmit 2 to 3 times a week.
Close-up shot, that reads and that
Like every other day, we would put together a list after dailies and say, okay, these are the 10 shots that we want to review with Steven, and we'd transmit those and we'd discuss them. He'd say, okay, can you make the wolf do this? Can you make that a little bit darker or whatever? So it was a very good communication process. Is this placement working better for you?
Let's see in the cut.
Here, let me go back.
Yeah, much better. Done.
All right, so we'll move on. Great.
Final.
Thank you.
Everything that the creature does has to be decided. If he blinks his eyes, it's on this frame. If he does this, it's on this frame. And every single one of those details, every nuance, everything that you see in the shot has been discussed over and over and over again on every single visual effects shot in the movie.
Couple of questions here. Now, this is the version without the shirt, and I'll show you the version with the shirt. So part of the question is, do we bother putting in the shirt for this one shot? The other question is just in terms of the amount of dripping and so forth. Right now I'm just figuring 3 or 4 areas that are dripping, just,
Yeah, some drool when he opens his mouth.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, yes. It's such a fast deal. I think the drool will read a couple drops, that's fine. I don't think you have to worry about the shirt.
Okay.
No one's looking at a shirt. I mean, he could have a shirt there for all I know.
Is it possible to think that that werewolf is absolutely real? I think in the moment it is, but I think if on reflection, I mean, of course it's not. There's no way that it is, because there's no such thing as a werewolf, or is there?
A large part of this character is to actually to get the physicality of him and that change. When you read and think, oh great, look, I get to jump here and how heroic, I'm going to look great. And then you think, who's actually going to be doing this? Oh, me. So yeah, exactly, I was on harnesses, I was flying around the woods, swinging from trees, running up walls. But it's fun, it's a lot of fun, and it reminds me of when I was this high and running around in my garden. So I'm just like a little child again, which is so much fun.
Castle Dracula?
Yes, that's where I'm going.
We people of the mountains believe at the castle there are vampires. Dracula and his wives, they take the form of wolves and bats. They leave their coffins at night and they feed on the blood of the living.
One of Stoker's sources was an article entitled Transylvanian Superstitions. And in that article, the author had recorded that the Romanian peasants in the part of Transylvania where she'd been living had this firm belief in vampires. Vampires! Romania has somehow gotten this stigma, if you wish, simply because Bram Stoker happened to see that article. Transylvania is connected automatically with vampires.
3, 2, 1, go.
I wanted to use every part of every myth we've ever heard about or used. That, Dracula has brides. He has 3 brides. And I thought, oh, that's really cool.
You, turn around. Let me see your faces.
In a number of folklores, there was, in some villages, a person who was sort of assigned to be the chief vampire hunter.
Gentlemen, you will now be disarmed.
You can try.
Find one leading actress who's gorgeous and a great actress. That's a big enough coup, but then to find 3 more?
It's really, really good to be a monster in a monsters movie.
Hello, Anna.
I think it's
Every actress dreamed to play the vampire, the last of the Valerius.
How often do you get to play like a super bad person? It's pretty cool.
Elena and Sylvie and Josie are all, different and wonderful. And together they make, quite a visual statement.
And what's nice is that she's not just wearing a pretty dress and fainting, she definitely gets her hands dirty. I love action movies with girls, and I think it's unusual to find a role in that kind of a movie where she actually has something to do.
I'm just out to play and have fun, and I die pretty young because of that problem.
His name is Van Helsing. Your reputation precedes you.
Next time, stay close. You're no good to me dead.
This is a different sort of movie than I've done before, and I think that was another thing that was so appealing about it.
Action!
It's much more broad than I'm used to, but there's plenty for an actress to play in it. I mean, she's lost her entire family, her brother's turned into a werewolf, and,
The moment Kate's name came up, we just knew that she had that rare quality that you could believe she could play period, that she could be funny and sexy, and also strong enough.
And still you tried to kill him!
He's a werewolf. He's gonna kill people.
He can't help it, it's not his fault!
I know, but he'll do it anyway. She's a great actress, and she's very beautiful, obviously, but she's wickedly funny. All her other siblings are brothers, and they're all older than her. So there's that great quality where she knows how to mix it with the boys.
She has to be a good match for Van Helsing, but at the same time, you want to have a romance between these two characters, so she can't be simply a hard, badass character. There has to be a softer side to her, and we found the perfect actress to play this role in Kate Beckinsale. I love the brides so much. They're great characters. They're very bad girls. And I just love our actresses.
Three Brides, I always imagined that Verona was the wife, and the other two are like the mistresses. Sylvia just has this walk about her and the way she speaks English that just feels worldly. She felt so worldly, I thought she's a perfect Verona. Elena, I think, sent a tape from Madrid. Bob popped it in. He said, "You got to see this girl." I walked in there and I thought, she's nuts. This girl's insane. So I flew to London and I met Elaine. Of course, she's very sweet and quiet and it was like, oh my God, it's really acting.
Did I scare you?
And then there's the younger one who's like kind of coquettish and unsure, but sure is vicious when she needs to be.
Too bad. So sad.
Josie walked in the door and that was kind of it. And they're a hoot together, the three of them. Oh, God.
Oh, look at that. It's just like yours.
Oh, okay.
We really like it.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of fun with my brides. Elena from Spain, Sylvia from Italy, and Josie from here, so...
I shall find another bride.
They bring their own totally different energies to these roles.
Please! Say you will not try again.
My heart could not bear the sorrow if we fail again. When you're acting the vampire, you have to look gorgeous. You have to be wicked at the same time. It's not that easy, actually.
Lady, give me just a little smile, like right before you're about to kill something.
Need I say more?
The costumes are my favorite.
If I understand it well,
Gabriella Pascucci made the best costumes.
this is the first time that I will do the movie with the special effect. It's not easy. It's really Steve tell me that likes the light color, and we decide one pink, violet, one yellow and a little bit green, and the other is only gold and yellow.
The costumes were just fantastic.
We'll look at this. We'll look at this and see. Hot? If I say it's hot, she'll never trust me again.
I will. Yeah. You know, they're not necessarily entirely practical because I had to do a lot of running around in rather high spindly heels and corsets and swim in a massive ball gown and all that stuff. So I always think if a woman gets through an action movie, she's way tougher than the boys are.
Anna is a heroine, but sexy, strong women. She can to be free from the period.
Go ahead, grab it.
Oh, you go ahead and grab it.
Always want to try and bring your actor or your actresses or whoever involved and put them in what feels like peril.
Ready, Josie?
You're gonna say action and jump.
And action!
That's what's fun.
Okay, Josie?
I love my job.
We have some pretty extensive flying rigs where we have Kate being flown away and Hugh running after, diving, grabbing her feet, and they travel 30, 40 feet, about 25, 30 feet in the air, and then we trip them loose and they actually throw a full back layouts and land on the ground in these uncompromising positions, but it was all done with them, which is pretty amazing.
And I hadn't done any stunts with Kate, and I said, Kate, how do you feel about it? She said, yeah, it looks all right. We did 3 takes. She stuck everyone perfectly.
They're really gung-ho. They probably have a lot more ability than they want to admit. Right on it there. Bam.
Kate actually is incredibly strong, and she'll tell you otherwise. You know, she'll maintain that she's very sort of delicate English rose.
I did Underworld, where I'd never done any action or stunt training or anything. I mean, I was very glad that I'd done a movie that involved quite a few stunts that I was asked to do myself. So we had worked on all of the specific stunts quite heavily and intensely, whereas with this, I kind of showed up. And it was very lucky that I was familiar with, you know, with the wires and all that stuff. You know, you're going to be doing a flip in the forest. Go.
3, 2, 1, go! Back in!
She runs great, she swings great, she fights, she's been upside down, she does flips, she does it all.
I did run for 7 months without stopping. Yeah, in heels.
That time we were shooting, it was about 0 or 10 degrees.
Like Elena there, impossible. Like Elena, perfect. Because she has no blood, so she's never cold. I love my balls!
Stephen wanted her to just take off like she was jumping, but not really flying, but just like a pixie. Fly up and be all animated.
Woo!
She just nailed it every single time. Very happy to be there. She's got great body control, and I think the attitude is what shows.
Mariska, kill the stranger.
Love to.
It was almost a year of designing for the brides. What was difficult was getting something that's a balance between a monster and something kind of beautiful. So it's like wicked but beautiful and nasty but beautiful. And then just getting the look. Are they naked? Are they not naked? That was a lot of iterations.
Do you like to fly?
And he came up with this idea of what they call a hybrid bride. What the hybrid bride is, it's effectively combining the best of makeup effects and the best of computer graphics to come up with a hybrid that looks and acts as a total real character.
A little bit. No, you're right.
Squid Action!
We've shot them against a blue screen in blue suits so that we can extract all the blue later and just have their heads. Their heads are in the prosthetic makeup that then we will later take those heads and apply them to computer graphics bride bodies, so that in shots where they fly right at camera, we're seeing our girls in these situations that we could never practically do.
Those girls, they are such troopers. I'm sure they will change their contracts from now on. I told them, look, from now on, if you see that you have to be on a blue screen stage, you double your fee.
Now!
They put all this plastic, all this latex in your face.
And they cast my whole body from head to toe. They measured everything. So we have a molding of my body. That was 6 months ago, so I was 24. So I'm stuck at 24 for the rest of my life somewhere.
Makeup is like 1 hour, and the special effects is like 1 hour and a half, so it's not too much.
We have to wear prosthetics on our face in order to cover our eyebrows, because when we transform into a horrible creature, we have no eyebrows, and it looks weird.
We enjoy ourselves doing the vampire things and flying and being so jealous and with the nails and the fangs and these long wigs, and it's great.
This is really cool to have character makeup, instead of just pretty makeup. It's like you're a vampire. It's really cool.
Action!
It took a long time to put all of us together, but eventually he made the perfect cast.
If I'd thought it was going to be tricky, I would have probably panicked. It was when the day was over, I was like, oh, God, glad that went okay. That could have been a disaster.
Find Vulcan's gun! It has to be the silver bullets!
Ready, and action! Oh, that'll be good.
Nice. Overgone!
We are in Castle Frankenstein, as you can see. This is where Frankenstein comes to life. All the peasants are crashing across the bridge and trying to break into Castle Frankenstein. And there's Victor Frankenstein. He's just awakened the monster, and there's lightning and thunder and rain.
Frankenstein's lab is a classic piece of design. Everybody thinks they know what it's going to look like.
You do have a sense of being a part of a history, not a literary history,
A little bedtime reading.
cinematic history, but in the sense that you're not recreating something, but you're creating it new, and that's very exciting. It's not hard to just sit back and enjoy the ride.
It's a really pleasant surprise when it exceeds your expectations. And Stephen's so excited as well. I think he would have shot in there all week if he could.
I want you to be so close to the lens that this man starts to cry. When you hear him start to whimper, then you've come probably a little too close. But until then...
He loved every shot, which is it's a real pleasure to work with somebody who's, like a boy with a very, very huge, wonderful train set.
Yeah, I love the original Frankenstein. What I love most about it is actually the atmosphere and the production design. It just has this great gothic feel, and it's not dirty and it's not cheap. There's just some sort of really wonderful romantic gothic feel they had that really, it draws me into the movie. It's so iconographic, the whole shot, and Victor Frankenstein turning around and screaming.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
When you arrive on a set that big and, you're a bit nervous because it's your first morning. I mean, I'm coming on set thinking, okay, this is LA, there's a crew of 150. I've never done this before. I'm not scared at all. But then when the size of the thing and the fact that there are these great kind of buzzing things in the background and lots of whirling dynamos.
Like sometimes some gothic things, it takes me out of a movie. It just seems so cold and or dirty, and and almost scary, whereas Frankenstein, there's something really warm about the movie. I know it's a monster movie and it's scary and it's gothic, but there's something really wondrous about the production design and all the atmosphere. In fact, I had both my production designer and cinematographer come in and we watched the movies together, and I said, boy, I want that much atmosphere.
We wanted to try and recreate the mood of the old black and white movies, and the sets are designed with those in mind. We wanted it to be quite realistic, but to push the realism.
My basic job is always finding everything that fills up the space. In this case, incredible turn-of-the-century Dr. Frankenstein equipment and cadavers and mummified skeletons. The lab was by far my favorite set to do. We have found kind of scary-looking forceps and hypodermic needles and many beautiful books. We've had things shipped from Croatia and Germany and Spain and most of the South American countries.
I arrived a week ago and went onto the set, and I was literally astounded. I mean, my jaw hit the floor. I think it's quite unusual nowadays to have production design of this caliber.
There's nothing so disappointing as walking onto a set that's kind of nothing like what you expected it to be. But this work here is kind of, surpassed any of my imaginings.
Imagine you've got to roll it, but you might as well start like that.
Any part of me like to catch fire just at this point, I'm including coattails or hair, good.
They're obviously colossal and, details kind of extraordinary. It absolutely helps. I mean, it helps enormously.
What's interesting about Frankenstein's lab, which we're shooting at the moment, is that it goes from black and white to colour, so I had to think tonally for the black and white sequence, and obviously colour harmonies for when we go into the colour sequence. So it made it slightly more complex design process, but also much more interesting.
Frankenstein's world is this brown, and in the lab we had a very limited palette, but very specific copper colors and a steel blue-gray and a mahogany wood, and then the brown walls that you see here.
What is this place?
Castle Frankenstein.
1 year later, the good Dr. Frankenstein has been murdered, and the place has been taken over by Dracula and the Dwerges, basically. So our concept was that his personal things had been kind of ransacked, so every piece of furniture has been tipped over, desk drawers emptied, papers spilled out all over the floor. Anything that they needed or used, they've taken, but quite a few things, because they're not a doctor or a scientist, they didn't know what they were, so they were left intact or just kind of looked at and tossed on the floor. So the concept was just ransacked.
This movie is all about taking people to a whole nother world. Hopefully it's wonderful escapist entertainment. I love this sort of stuff, and that's what we're doing. Is whether you're inside a foyer at Castle Frankenstein or exterior Castle Dracula, the movie is it's huge.